Hello everyone. Today we're presenting a Microapp DevOps and documentation app that we've built to help with Microapp configurations. Presenting today is Gregory Hayes, myself, Kappa, and Enrique. Let's get started. First, let's take a look at what's coming up in the agenda. We'll first talk about the current challenges with Microapp configuration. Then we'll take a look at the existing functionality of the MicroappExporter app. And then we'll take a look at the Microapp documentation deep dive. From there, we'll take a look at some of the key MicroappExporter features. We'll talk about the Citrix Cloud API client setup, which is a prerequisite before using the MicroappExporter app. And then we'll have a demo where we'll take a walkthrough of the MicroappExporter app and the documentation feature. Let's get started. And to begin, we're going to hand things off to Enrique, so he's going to talk about some of the current challenges and the benefits of using the MicroappExporter app.
Thanks, Kappa. We have identified 4 major struggling points for administrators and partners while working or configuring microapps. First, there is no easy way to test and validate authentication against different systems of record. There is also no cache of known good configurations of microapps, and therefore configurations cannot be reused easily by administrators on different environments or deployments. Also, there is no easy way of identifying differences among microapp configurations. The administrator needs to look at the configurations and identify the differences visually. The MicroappExporter app helps with the struggling points. The tool implements a feature that acts as a utility to test and validate authentication against different systems of record. It implements a feature that creates a personal cache of microapp configurations that can be exported and imported from the Citrix Cloud. The cache now allows administrators to use and reuse their known good configurations in different environments and deployments. And the tool also implements a div utility that makes identifying differences among microapps much easier. Let's look at the following scenario to illustrate the usefulness of the tool. An administrator manages 2 microapp environments. Each environment hosts a set of microapps, but not all microapps are different. As a matter of fact, these environments are more alike than different, and many of the microapps that they host are the same. Without the MicroappExporter app, the administrator has to configure these microapps from scratch on every environment. This scenario is only exacerbated if we think of this from the perspective of a Citrix partner. This partner supports a set of 3 administrators, and each administrator manages 2 environments. Many different microapps are implemented by the different customers, but microapps are not only implemented by one customer. Without the MicroappExporter app, the partner will need to configure 18 different microapps, 3 for each deployment, with 2 deployments per customer. Now, imagine if the partner had a cache of known and tested microapp implementations that would be reused in different environments. With the MicroappExporter tool, the partner would set each microapp once when the customer requests it for the first time, and it will save it in its cache. When a different customer, or even the same customer in a different environment, requests it again, the partner can just import it into the environment to create it. Now, instead of configuring 18 microapps from scratch, the partner configures 6 microapps, saves them in the cache, and reuse them on different environments. Now I'll hand it back to Kappa.
Thanks, Enrique. So now that we've seen some of the main use cases of the app, let's take a look at it in more detail. So the MicroappExporter DevOps app complements the existing product import-export feature. It works in conjunction with the product's feature set, and it leverages the product's import-export APIs. It provides Microapp documentation. It's a key feature of the app. We have more on this later. And the MicroappExporter app provides an easier way to manage the exports and the imports, and it provides a mechanism for the admins to create their own Microapps cache or repository for reference. The Microapps repository can be used to scale and replicate against various environments, and it saves time and avoids human errors. Now I'm going to hand things off to Greg to talk a little bit more about the APIs that are used and about the Microapps documentation feature.
Thanks, Kappa. Let's take a look at the Microapp public APIs. Currently, the public APIs for Microapps is limited to the export and import of Microapps and integration bundles. You can see the official documentation on developer.cloud.com. For the purpose of the documentation tool, we focus on the following three APIs: list integrations for a customer, list Microapps for an integration, and Microapp export. Next, I'd like to talk about some documentation features we've been working on. For any of you that have used the Microapp Builder already, you know that information about the integrations, pages, and data cache can take a lot of clicks to find. To that end, as I started reviewing the downloaded Microapp files, I wondered if some formal documentation could be extracted. So let's take a look at how we got there. When you export a Microapp or integration bundle, you'll see a .map extension. This is actually a zip file in disguise. By changing the extension of the .map to .zip, the zip tool can extract the content. The Microapp folder contains an I18N folder with language files and file.sap, which contains the definition of the Microapp and integration. The I18N folder will contain at minimum the en.json file, which is the English translation. If other languages have been added to the environment, you will find them here as well. The en.json file contains the labels and templates used within the pages and notifications. Each item is a GUID value pair that maps to a component within the Microapp definition. .sap is another custom file extension. The contents of file.sap is actually JSON. I found the JSON viewer in Notepad++ to be a helpful tool for quickly exploring the content of a JSON file. Within file.sap, there are three main root objects: services, applications, and notifications. Services contain the definition of the integration, including data endpoints, how data is retrieved from the system of record, service actions, how data is written to the system of record, as well as the structure of the data cache, tables and columns. Applications contains a definition of the pages and components that are found within the Microapp. Notifications contains the events that trigger notifications and the contents of the messages that are delivered to the end users. Browsing through the JSON structure within file.sap, we start to find things like pages and the components that make up a page, such as text inputs, tables, and buttons. As well, you'll see values such as title containing GUID. These are the values that map back to the language file we looked at earlier. But what if that information was transformed into something much easier to digest, like HTML-enabled web pages? Since the data in file.sap is exported in a consistent structure, a script should be able to extract the relevant information and transform it into something that is human readable instead of machine readable. Using this script, you can extract data endpoints, including the URL and parameters, as well as the data structure, and present those in an easy-to-read format. For each page, the components are printed in the order they appear on the page, and the appropriate labels and titles are extracted from the language file. A possible enhancement may include a wiremark of the page to give a better visual of the output. A summary of the notification is available. The notification type, base table, and schedule are available. As well, the title, body, message, and target page. One of the key features of the tool is being able to quickly see the structure of the data cache. This is the tables, columns, and relationships that make up the database that drives your microapps. You can review the data types assigned to the columns to make sure the configuration matches your expectations. Following up on the data tables and columns is the service relationships. This is a quick summary of how tables within the integration are linked. It can be useful to double-check the names of aliases or to ensure that a relationship actually exists. We've seen a summary of the data from a single microapp, but as we know, an integration can contain one or more microapps. Navigating up one level, you'll find a summary of microapps that are part of the integration. And navigating up one more level, we can see a summary of all the integrations that make up a customer's environment. So now you have access to all the tables, pages, data endpoints, etc. that make up your microapps deployment. You can quickly review the existing information, plan for changes or enhancements, and compare settings from different environments. Some enhancements under consideration include quick links from page components to the table pages, adding webhook documentation, additional summary information on the customer page, including full and incremental sync schedules. And of course, other suggestions are always welcome. Now I'll hand the presentation over to Kappa to continue the Microapp exporter features.
This conference will now be recorded.
Here we can see the Microapp docs created for one of our environments. And as you saw, the first page is a list of all integrations that make up the customer environment. And we can click into any of those integrations to see the microapps. For example, Citrix Blogs or Concierge, which is our ServiceNow integration. And drilling down into, for example, Jira, you can see the microapps. And then within a microapp, you can start to see the details. So a summary of the integration, pages that make up this particular microapp. So we have comments, comment details, ticket details, because we're in a Jira microapp. You can also see all the tables that make up our Jira integration. And drilling into a particular table, see all the columns. Go back to pages and, for example, drill into a comment detail. You can see if there's a back button, a static text component, grid items, and another button to submit the add component or add comment. Next, we'll take a quick look at notifications. So here we can see the label, the notification type, anywhere from change to new, which table is driving the notification, when the notification is executed, title, and a message body, and then which table the notification goes to. Next is data endpoints. So this is how data is being retrieved from the system of record. We're getting data from the board table. You can see the table that it creates. And last is service relationships, saying how tables are linked to each other. So now, because Jira is an out-of-the-box integration, the features are static. But if we look at, for example, an HTTP integration, such as Kudos, here we can see the actual definition of service actions. So you can see the endpoint that we're going to call, parameters that could be passed in, how those parameters are converted into body parameters, and even what the full JSON payload might look like. Similarly, we can see that for data endpoints. So how we're retrieving data from the system record. So again, the parameters that are used, the endpoints table, and then how that data coming back from the system record is converted into a database table.
Thanks, Greg, for walking us through the Microapp documentation deep dive. Now let's take a look at the MicroappExporter app's key features. So it's a cross-platform desktop app. We have a build for Mac OS. That's what's being depicted on the screen here. We also have a build that runs on Windows. It has an intuitive UI, so allowing the administrator to easily navigate amongst the various integrations and microapps contained therein. And it has an integrated HTML documentation feature that Greg discussed previously. It also stores the exports using a local folder cache repository or database, and it supports bulk or granular exports. It automatically unpacks the compressed package that gets exported, and it automatically unpacks the configuration files for you. The integrated JSON diff viewer is available within the app, and it allows the administrator to drag and drop JSON configs from right within the app into the JSON viewer to allow the administrator to easily identify differences between configurations. Now, before getting started using the app, we need to configure the app with the appropriate tenant and client ID and client secret that corresponds with your environment. So the MicroappExporter uses the Citrix Cloud APIs, as Greg previously described, and this requires a Citrix Cloud client ID and client secret in order for you to connect and use the REST API. And this can be obtained from the Citrix Cloud API client setup. So in order for you to set up your Cloud API client, simply follow the guide and the link above. And some of the key steps, basically you log into your Citrix Cloud portal and go to the Identity and Access Management section on the left-hand side. And then once there, click on the API Access tab. And then from there, create client. So you'll click on the button to create a client. You'll give it a name. And then once you create your client, it then provides you with the client ID and the client secret. So you can copy the client ID and client secret, save that in a secure location, and then later on when you're ready to run the MicroappExporter app, you would then configure the app to use that client ID and client secret so that it makes the API calls against your environment. So with that being said, let's take a look at the demo that we have prepared, where we're going to walk through some of the MicroappExporter app's core features, as well as the documentation feature.
All right, we're going to get integrations. We're going to make sure we're authenticated using our Citrix Cloud Client API credentials. And then once we've fetched the integrations, we can then take a look at the various integrations that's available for that particular cloud tenant. And we can select a respective integration and view the microapps for that particular integration. And over on the left-hand side, you'll see the data cache. Here you can see the various integrations that were exported in the past. And we can expand a particular integration to then see the microapps. And then if we drill down even further, we would be able to then see the JSON configuration files that pertain to a given microapp. We could also import a microapp back into the cloud straight from that user interface. Once imported back, we'll get a confirmation showing that it was successfully imported, and we get to see what the ID or the identifier for that import is. And if we refresh the microapp list, we would be able to see the new import and confirm with the ID that that's the import that we've just done. And we also have the ability to compare JSON configurations right within the tool. We can drag and drop from the left-hand side into the JSON viewer, and it allows us to compare. Now the app is still a work in progress, so we plan on adding in an OAuth configuration tester here. So that is something that will be coming up in the future. Thanks for viewing our session. The MicroappExporter app will be released in Q4 of this year. We will communicate with the Converge Slack channels to let everyone know when that release date would be, and we'll also be available to answer any questions for the Q&A session via Slack. Thank you so much for your time.